And what can you do, my effeminate fellow?
I can suck your dick.
Ha! No.
Hello, all my fellow skeptics out there. This is the Skeptical Skeptic coming at you today with yet another video. Doing something very different than my usual content this time. This week, I am going to be reviewing the wonderful creation of Vivzy Pop, who is really named Vivienne Medrano, known as Hazbin Hotel. A review that I am incredibly late to the punch on, as the original pilot ended up airing on October 28th in 2019, so I understand this video might not be totally relevant by now anyway. But I don't care, because I've been wanting to talk about this show since I first saw it, because knowing nothing about Vivzy Pop beforehand, I was just recommended this pilot and sat down to watch it blind, and it was one of the most entertaining experiences I've ever had. The funny thing is that back when I was a virgin Christian loser, I'd probably have been calling out this series as, oh, it's so disrespectful and sinful, wah, 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 wah. But now that I'm a virgin atheist loser, this shit is just juice in my veins. So anyway, what's the plot of this series? Well, it's not exactly a series, at least not yet, but the pilot introduces us to the world of hell, which actually seems to be a kind of a fun place for sinners to just go wild, if not for the fact that angels come down from heaven every year and purge a bunch of the population to make room for new sinners. And the sinners that are purged either die or go to double hell or something. It's never really explained, honestly. But that's not important, because the princess of hell, named Charlie, actually seems to be a pretty cool gal. And she is kind of concerned about the mass genocide of her people taking place on a yearly basis, so she hatches a plan to fix the overpopulation problem in hell by redeeming the sinners who have been sent there, sending them straight to heaven. Problem is that most of the citizens of hell don't really seem to want to go to heaven, and the only people really helping Charlie with her plan are her demon waifu Vaggie and a drag queen prostitute named Angel Dust. As you probably could have guessed by my demeanor, I absolutely loved this pilot and thought it was an amazing hook to such a unique and creative idea. I mean, the fact that I can describe this show to people as being about gay princesses from hell already makes it automatically amazing. But let's go into why I thought it was so good, and why all the haters who said this show was nothing but a bunch of immature dick jokes are wrong as hell. Get it? Hell. Laugh! So, first thing we gotta talk about is the animation. One of the most important parts of any animated program. And your god, is it amazing. I mean, I don't think I've seen a cartoon in a long time that looks as good as Hazbin Hotel does. This is definitely not your average animated adult sitcom. Hazbin Hotel completely embraces the incredible fluidity and creativity that animation allows. It's a cartoon, it doesn't try to hide that, instead embracing its zaniness and over-exaggerated designs and expressions, which is something I wish more cartoons did, as I feel like, with the great leaps forward in technology we've taken, many cartoons nowadays can appear as though they have intentionally underwhelming and bland animation. See Steven Universe. Anyway, Vivienne Medrano apparently spent years working on this pilot, and it shows in the incredible detail and unique character designs and backgrounds. I absolutely love how this pilot never stands still. Something, or many things, in the frame are constantly in motion. The body movements are smooth and flowing rather than really choppy and stilted like in many other adult sitcoms. A lot of the shots in this pilot are also extremely stylized, like the musical number at the beginning. And I really appreciated those kinds of shots, and then there are those moments where the animation just goes crazy, like the second musical in the middle, and it's an unabated Sakuga feast for the eyes. Now let's talk about the story. I already gave the plot synopsis before, and the idea of a comedy set in hell about the daughter of the devil opening a hotel to redeem sinners so they can get into heaven is one of the strangest and most unique premises I've ever heard of. Since it's the pilot episode, there isn't really the space to introduce a ton of story beats and plot developments right out of the gate. However, the story of the daughter's devil trying to rehabilitate sinners is a good enough hook on its own, and could lead to all kinds of amazing and hilarious situations in the future, as you could run with a Demon of the Week type scenario, with each episode focusing on a new sinner and how they got themselves into hell, and how Charlie attempts to change them. However, the pilot doesn't just focus on that, and also introduces other elements to the world as well, which open up even more possibilities going forward. For example, it's revealed that after the angel extermination, there was a massive turf war going on as demons move in and try to take control of more territory for themselves, which could provide a lot of great content in the future. And the pilot also introduces Alastor, an incredibly powerful demon whose true motives are a mystery. and him along with Charlie's tenuous relationship with her parents could provide for a great ongoing mystery and drama throughout the whole series. Overall, there are just so many cool things you can do with a premise like this. I, for one, am incredibly excited to see more of Hell and learn more about the demon hierarchy. However, this does bring me to one issue I do have with the pilot. Though the premise is fantastic and brimming with potential, and the setup for things to come is fantastic, I was a bit confused by the world building in this pilot episode. I'm sure a lot of my questions will be answered when more episodes come out, but it is never made clear exactly whether or not the sinners in Hell can actually kill each other, or if only the angels can. And when the residents of Hell are killed, do they just disappear or go to some lower Hell? I mean, even Angel Dust himself questions this.
I'm gonna kill him.
Too late, Toots. Wait! Would that make me double dead? Where exactly do I go? To double hell?
You could have fixed this issue with just one simple line change by having Angel tell Charlie it doesn't matter how many people he annihilated in the turf war, because they can't really die and will just spawn again, and only emissaries of God have the power to completely destroy a soul forever so it doesn't come back. So yes, the world building in this episode is a bit messy, but it has a fantastic premise and setup, and the potential for tons more episodes worth of story to come in the future. Now, why don't we get to talking about the characters, by far one of the most important aspects of any show. And Hazbin Hotel has some incredibly colorful characters to choose from, no pun intended. So firstly, why don't we take a look at Charlie, the show's main protagonist. I absolutely love Charlie as the main lead. In a hellscape of loathsome sinners, Charlie is pretty much the most morally good person there, a bright ray of sunshine that must be protected at all costs. Too good for this world. Too pure.
Bitch!
Okay, maybe not that pure, but it's definitely ironic as she is the literal daughter of the devil, and her goal of trying to do something to make things better and save people that have been deemed beyond redemption from extermination, rather than just going with the grain uncaringly like it seems like the other head honchos in Hell are content to do, is incredibly noble and admirable. She has an incredible passion for doing what she feels is right, and despite her constantly being laughed at and mocked by those around her who see her goals as laughable nonsense, she remains steadfast. However, I also like that even though she is very happy-go-lucky and motivated most of the time, there is also that element of sadness to her, as you can tell the weight of what she has decided she needs to do is weighing her down, and she is terrified of being a failure. The song Always Chasing Rainbows that Charlie sings at the beginning of the episode is incredibly somber and sad, in complete contrast to the song she sings later, Inside of Every Demon is a Rainbow, which shows at least how, in part, the happy-go-lucky attitude she wears is somewhat of a persona, as she is trying to fight against the sadness and inadequacy she is feeling both for herself and for the sinners around her. The scene where she is trying to call her mom is probably the most touching in the episode and really made me feel for her. And I really want her familial relationships to be explored more in depth in the future. Also, Charlie is just such an entertaining character to watch. She's incredibly adorable and brings a very bubbly energy to most of the scenes she's in. Her voice actress does a great job, and I actually found a lot of her lines to be pretty funny, especially parts where she kind of breaks from the typical nice girl stereotype very casually.
Okay, so, now, you're sketchy as fuck.
Another aspect I really enjoyed about Charlie is that she's also kind of a little bit crazy. Like, she's really nice and cute, but then there are just those moments where you remember that she is the daughter of the devil and has a much darker side to her. Like, I am afraid of what happens if this girl ever just snaps in the future, and every time it shows cracks of her demon form, it really got me interested. She's actually kind of similar to Star from Star vs. the Force of Evil in that respect, and I get very similar vibes from both characters. Hopefully Hazbin Hotel will not end with Charlie deciding to genocide the entire population of heaven or some shit. Dear God, what was that finale, though? Now, why don't we take a look at Charlie's girlfriend, Vaggie? Side note, before we actually get to her character, can I just comment on how great it is that this pilot actually showcases a healthy same-sex relationship between two main leads right out of the gate? I mean, same-sex relationships in cartoons are not exactly groundbreaking nowadays, but it is more rare for them to be shown together in the first episode, and for the two main leads. Like, I love the new She-Ra reboot, but that show's two canonically gay couples were minor characters, and Cachadora didn't officially become a thing until the season finale. In fact, a lot of shows, both in the East and in the West, like to draw romantic subplots over the course of multiple seasons, and I like how both Hazbin Hotel and Hell of a Boss both start out at the beginning with a very endearing canonical couple. Also, while cartoons aimed at younger audiences are getting much better at LGBTQ representation, adult media does not exactly have a great track record, with gay characters often being the butt of jokes. So yeah, I applaud Hazbin Hotel for its LGBTQ representation. And although we didn't get to see much of Vaggie and Charlie's relationship in the pilot, they are clearly portrayed as a couple, and I found their interactions to be pretty sweet. But now let's get off that tangent and actually talk about Vaggie's character. Vaggie has what I would call a very strong protect instinct. She basically spends the majority of the pilot trying to keep Charlie out of danger throughout all of her antics. She obviously cares about Charlie a lot, probably because she is one of the only people in hell who's actually nice to her, and I really end up liking her character in the pilot. She's much more prone to violence than Charlie is, and she served as a great contrast to her. It's also pretty badass that she's threatened the most powerful sinner in hell without a second thought. I also love how just completely done with everybody's shit she is. She sort of plays the straight woman of the group, ironic since she's a lesbian, as she clearly isn't too crazy about a lot of the quirky and over-the-top characters in the series, and is often trying to appeal to practicality, when the characters in this universe obviously have none. And although I didn't find her quite as funny as some of the other characters, some of her reactions to other characters' bullshit really did get a laugh out of me.
That was really uncool, you know, Angel.
Uncool? After that train wreck, there is no way anyone is gonna want to stay at the hotel. All thanks to you and your selfish bullshit!
Does that mean I don't have a free room anymore?
I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of her character in the future and learning more about her and why she is in hell. And then there's the gay, cross-dressing, mobster, porn-acting, drug-addicted spider from hell, the greatest combination of descriptions ever to be uttered in a single sentence, Angel Dust. I fucking love Angel Dust, man. Like, he's so amazing. I don't want to call it yet, but Angel Dust might honestly be my favorite character in the series. I laughed so hard at so many of his jokes, and he definitely has a lot, since he's that kind of character who will pretty much just make fun of every situation he's in, and never take anything seriously, even when the situation he's in is incredibly dangerous.
Not so cocky now, are we? You know, you really gotta watch what comes out of your mouth. I've been making these sex jokes the whole time, and it's obvious you ain't catching on.
Angel Dust is clearly not a good person, has very few redeeming qualities, goes out of his way to insult and demean people, and doesn't even seem to be interested in wanting to change at all. But damn is he an entertaining jackass. This absolute mad lad Chad casually called the most powerful sinner in hell a strawberry pimp, and then offered to suck his dick afterwards. I know there were a lot of people who weren't huge fans of him and found his crude sex jokes to be a bit too much, but I wholeheartedly disagree, and basically I was entertained every second he was on screen. However, in addition to just being a really fun and funny character, Angel Dust also does show complexities as well. It's in little moments, like where he goes to comfort Charlie when she is feeling depressed, but then stops himself, where we see that he isn't totally heartless, but doesn't quite know how to offer genuine kindness to people in a way that won't make things worse, so he instead just acts completely unserious all the time in order to guard his emotions. The Angel Dust music video that was released also gives us a much deeper look into his psyche, with him clearly not being very happy a lot of the time and using drugs and sex and gratuitous violence to constantly try to distract himself from his own emptiness. There's definitely a lot more to Angel Dust's character than meets the eye, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him get more fleshed out in the future. And now, finally, let us take a look at the deal-making radio announcer, Alistair. Alistair does not get major focus until the last third of the episode, but oh boy does he make one hell of an introduction. Laugh, damn it! Okay, so Alistair is a very mysterious character, but what we do know is that he once basically ruled over all of hell, but then just stopped running his empire out of nowhere. So he's incredibly powerful, and he decides in the pilot episode that his godlike abilities would be best put to use helping Charlie run her hotel. And why, do you ask?
Why does anyone do anything? Sheer, absolute boredom!
It's hilarious that Alistair is so blatant about the fact that he thinks what Charlie is doing is completely ridiculous and only wants to be entertained by watching her fail. And it leads to an incredibly interesting dynamic, with Charlie in the end deciding to let him help her. I'm really interested to see how their relationship plays out in the future, as they have great chemistry together, with them both having a flair for the dramatic, but I can't help but suspect that Alistair secretly has more sinister motives than just wanting to cure his boredom, and I can definitely see him becoming a villain later down the line. His permanently plastered-on devilish grin is terrifying, and his polite, staticky radio voice and chipper demeanor make him an incredibly uncomfortable presence in the show. And then, of course, there are those times where for a few seconds reality will just start to morph and glitch around him, as if his evil is just seeping onto the screen. And it's just monstrous. But on top of that, Alistair is also just a very fun and entertaining character, and as I said before, he has great chemistry with Charlie. I also found some of his reactions to other characters to just be absolutely hilarious.
You think I'm some kind of fucking clown?
Maybe.
So yeah, Alistair is a great character and a solid addition to the cast. There are also more minor supporting characters introduced in this pilot worth noting. First, we have the spunky powerhouse Cherry Bomb. I absolutely love her design and her personality. She's just a very fun character who revels in violence and kicks ass, and she stole the show whenever she was on screen. There's also the over-the-top Kingpin Sir Penches. I gotta be honest, I wasn't really the biggest fan of this guy. I know his voice is supposed to sound really over-the-top, but I just didn't really find it, or many of his lines, that funny. So yeah, certainly not one of my favorite characters. Then there is the 666 news reporter Katie Killjoy, and she is just as big of a bitch as her name implies. She is incredibly entertaining in how much of a terrible person she is, and she always seems like she is about to snap and kill someone. I love the comedy done with her, with my favorite moment being when she refuses to shake Charlie's hand because she is above touching the gaze. I also really love how she is animated, with every movement seemingly sounding like some of her bones are snapping in the process. Her assistant news anchor is named Tom, and he provides a great foil to Killjoy. He had a lot of funny lines on his own, and it was just really funny to see him constantly get abused by his co-host, and then later set on fire by Charlie. Then there is the little darling Nifty, a character who the fanbase is obsessed over for some reason, despite being in the pilot for like a minute. I mean, Nifty is fine, I guess. She's energetic and extra, but I honestly didn't really laugh that much at the few jokes she did have, and I don't really get why the fanbase has taken such a liking to her. Finally, we have the bartender Husker. He doesn't get much screen time either, but I do love his perpetually being done with everyone's shit demeanor, and his line delivery was absolutely perfect. Now let's talk about the comedy in this series. Hazbin Hotel is an adult animated sitcom, so the comedy is a pretty important aspect. And in my opinion, it absolutely delivered. There were tons of jokes all throughout this pilot that made me laugh out loud, and as I was alluding to before with my character analyses, the comedy is very character-based. You get different kinds of humor from different characters. Like, for example, Katie Killjoy wouldn't just randomly drop a sex joke in the middle of a conversation, like Angel Dust might. It is this variety due to character that really makes a lot of the jokes feel fresh, and just seeing the characters interact with one another leads to comedy naturally, as their distinct personalities bounce off each other. The comedy is also just extremely energetic, with jokes coming one after another, and the timing is absolutely impeccable. Now, there are some people who have slammed the comedy in Hazbin Hotel for being too, quote-unquote, immature, because it used a lot of slapstick and is really energetic, complaining that if it wasn't for the foul language and dirty jokes, then the comedy in the pilot wouldn't feel out of place on a Nickelodeon show. To each their own, I suppose, but to that complaint I say, is classic SpongeBob not funny? Is Invader Zim not funny? Immature is such a bullshit complaint, as I can think of plenty of adult media that have extremely immature moments and jokes. You don't need to have a 400 IQ brain to laugh at the comedy if it's well acted, well timed, and sharply written, which the comedy in Hazbin Hotel certainly is. And I honestly think many of the jokes are more clever than people give them credit for. There are also just more minor bits of comedy that come from the animation rather than the performances, which I really appreciated.
Don't look at this!
I know a lot of people weren't huge fans of the comedy style in this pilot, but this kind of shit is just right up my alley, and I honestly thought this pilot was funnier than most adult comedies I've watched. The humor in the show, and really many aspects of the show, actually gave me major Invader Zim vibes, which is one of my favorite shows of all time, and that definitely checks out, as Vivian Medrano is a major Invader Zim fan, and I can see the clear inspiration with the art style, the energy, and the random off-the-wall characters and humor.
Hello!
In fact, the Invader Zim parallels get even more incredible when you realize that the voice actor for Zim actually plays the character Moxie in the spin-off Hell of a Boss, which is just a match made in heaven. It's honestly a stroke of genius for the show to be set in hell, as comedy is derived from tension and conflict, so almost everyone being a terrible person will provide for some amazing comedic material in the future. So yeah, I thought this pilot was incredibly funny. So now let's talk about the voice acting. Quite honestly, I thought it was absolutely incredible. I've been talking about the great line delivery throughout this entire review, and I mean it when I say that pretty much every voice actor slipped into the roles perfectly, and brought so much life to the show. Top notch for sure. Now let's talk about the music. Despite Vaggy's claims, life is in fact a musical in Hazbin Hotel, as the pilot is classified as such. So how does this music of the series hold up? Overall, Hazbin Hotel has some pretty great background tracks, with the music fitting pretty well in most scenes. I do think at times the music can be a little too goofy and all over the place, and it doesn't help that the sound effects in this pilot are pretty overused in a lot of places. But the real highlights in this pilot regarding the sound is the use of songs, of which there are 3, all of which are unique and absolutely incredible, and fit with the animation well. The first song, Always Chasing Rainbows, is a beautiful and surprisingly somber start to a comedy that handles the introduction to the world of hell with great subtlety, and I'm glad that the pilot started out with this amazing and stylized musical number rather than immediately cutting to a joke, showing that there is more to this series than just comedy. I especially liked how it started out sounding lighthearted, very Disney-esque, but then transitions over time as the visuals become darker and more disturbing as we realize where the story is set in. Inside of Every Demon is a Rainbow is just an incredibly fun and energetic song with fantastic animation that gives us a first-hand look at the other side of Charlie that we didn't see in the opening song. How passionate and optimistic she is, to a fault, and it's an amazing bop. Alistair's Inside of Every Demon is a Lost Cause is a very Alistair rendition of Charlie's song sung previously. It has very similar lyrics, but it's definitely its own thing, and it has a more old-timey sound to it. It's more classy than Charlie's original song, and not as over the top, but it's still really creative and gives us a great look into Alistair's appreciation for the theatrics. And of course the animation that goes along with it is stellar, and I really appreciated the very unique use of colors and how they change. So overall, the Hazbin Hotel pilot managed to crank out 3 amazing musicals that carried thematic continuity and gave the audience insight into the characters singing them. So great job with the music. Now the last aspect of the pilot that I want to talk about is Hazbin Hotel's heart. When I first watched this pilot, I could very clearly tell that it was different from other adult animated sitcoms, and that is of course for a variety of reasons, but the biggest one for me is heart. This pilot, this story, and these characters are more than just a bunch of immature jokes, as some people claim, and there is something so genuine about the entire pilot that really speaks to me. Perhaps it's because I'm pretty young. I mean, I am only 19, but I have a great appreciation for children's animation, at least the children's animation that actually has effort put into it, and at least in the West, I'm just not really that interested in watching adult animation. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Family Guy, American Dad, South Park, The Simpsons, and honestly, even though I used to really like the show, Rick and Morty has been losing me as well. And I think part of the reason is that I just don't get the same amount of attachment and wonderment that I get from watching shows like Avatar, Gravity Falls, and She-Ra, Princess of Power. Part of it might have to do with the fact that the main character of those shows tend to be very unlikable and cynical assholes. And don't get me wrong, that kind of archetype can work. I mean, BoJack Horseman is one of my favorite shows of all time, and its main protagonist is a despicable piece of shit. But it's just very refreshing for me to see an adult animated sitcom like Hazbin Hotel, set in hell of all places, where the main character is so incredibly likable and inspiring, and has real defined noble goals she is willing to fight for. Charlie is truly the heart of Hazbin Hotel, as she carries the major emotional weight due to the enormity of the task she has set out for herself, and I managed to be incredibly invested in her goals and relationships in only a single pilot. Other adult animated sitcoms would probably have her goal of trying to help other people and rehabilitate them be played as a joke. And while characters in the pilot do laugh at and make fun of her, the narrative clearly frames Charlie's goals as very admirable, if a bit optimistic, and I am sure that Charlie is going to be facing a lot of major setbacks, hardships, and heartbreaks later down the line. However, I just love how at the heart of this series is the message that even when it seems like there is no hope, and even when it seems like you are in hell, you still have a chance to change things, to redeem yourself, and to make things better if you try hard enough, which is a message that I hold very dear to me. In addition to that message, and Charlie's character, other small moments from the other characters in this pilot, like Vaggy telling Charlie that how well she knows her, and Angel Dust gesturing like he wants to console Charlie, just really sell to me the fact that this cartoon, even in just its pilot, has a lot more heart to it than most other adult animated TV shows out there. Anyway, before I finally end this review, which by this point is as long as the actual pilot, I also want to talk about some of the controversy surrounding it, and its creator, Vivian Medrano. So apparently Vivian came under fire for some offensive tweets she made several years ago. I don't know what they are, and I don't really care too much. Apparently she has since apologized for them, and I honestly think it's kind of stupid to try to cancel someone over a few tweets they made a few years ago. Also, whatever a person's personal views or actions are do not necessarily affect the quality of a piece of art. So I am much more interested in talking about the controversies relating to the show. A lot of people got angry at the Hazbin Hotel pilot, calling it offensive for being offensive's sake, and yeah, Hazbin Hotel is offensive. It's set in hell, where a lot of people are not so nice, like sexists, racists, and homophobes. So I really don't see why that's an aspect people are complaining about. However, the series being set in hell does bring up a topic that is perhaps a little dicey. The four most major characters in this series are all queer. Angel Dust and Vaggie are gay, Charlie is bisexual, and Alistair is asexual. So some people are taking the fact that the main characters of a show set in hell are queer, as implying that queer people are bad people and deserve to go to hell. Disregarding the fact that Vivian Medrano herself is actually queer, because, like I said before, whatever a person's personal views or actions do not necessarily affect the quality of a piece of art, let's actually look at the substance of this claim. I actually think that it's really cool that Hazbin Hotel has a lot of LGBTQ representation, and I really don't see it as being in a harmful way. Firstly, Vaggie and Charlie, despite being in hell, don't really seem to be bad people, and appear to be in a loving and healthy relationship with one another. Angel Dust is quite different, as he is pretty clearly a piece of shit and a drug-addicted prostitute. But here's the thing though, not every LGBTQ character has to be a peachy keen, morally good role model. There are gay people in real life who are not good people and have really messed up lives, just like there are a lot of straight people like that. And I think that LGBTQ people deserve to have varied representation in media, with bad people, good people, morally ambiguous people, and for them to be simply written as complex characters first, with their sexuality only being a part of their identity, rather than trying to walk on eggshells to avoid creating any LGBTQ characters who fall into negative stereotypes and don't serve as impeccable role models. Angel Dust is a fantastic, entertaining, and complex character who's also a fan favorite, as I laid out before, who also happens to be a gay man. And I know this because during the development of Hazbin Hotel, Angel Dust was actually supposed to be in a straight relationship with Vaggie. But complex and varied LGBTQ characters are one thing, but why do so many of them have to be in hell? Not only are the four main characters of Hazbin Hotel queer, but many have noticed that a lot of the demons we follow in the spin-off series Hell of a Boss seem to swing both ways. Can this be interpreted as same-sex attraction being inherently sinful? Hell, if characters like Vaggie don't really seem to be bad people, is she just in hell for the mere fact that she is a lesbian? Well, possibly, because if you read the Holy Bible, you would know that God fucking hates gay people. In fact, he proclaimed that men caught fornicating with one another would be put to death. God actually fucking hates a lot of people, including prostitutes, witches, disrespectful teenagers, people who work on the Sabbath, zoophiliacs, adulterers, motherfuckers, fuck mothers, daughter fuckers, fortune tellers, apostates, people who worship other gods, brides who aren't virgins, all of which he commands the death penalty for, Sumerian babies, people who pull out, and anyone with foreskins. He also really doesn't like it when people eat shellfish and wear mixed fabric. In other words, the Christian God is an intolerant bastard who brutally punishes people for supposed sins, some of which aren't even harmful. And I don't know what Vivian Medrano's personal religious beliefs are, but I kind of doubt that a devout Christian would make a show like this. Regardless of her personal beliefs, though, I can't help but read into the subtext of the show as a subtle critique of the Christian religion. I mean, those angels we see at the beginning who come to purge the population look pretty demonic, and with the spin-off series Hell of a Boss already hinting at the fact that heaven isn't nearly as pure and perfect as it's made out to be, it seems to be like the show is trying to point out that things might not be as complicated as heaven good, hell bad. Are people like Vaggie in hell just because they're gay? Well, it would be consistent with the Christian text, but I doubt it, and she probably committed some kind of action that ended her up, down in hell, that will be revealed in the future. But that, of course, brings up another criticism this show could be making about Christianity. That people who have done bad things in their lives, due to circumstances, and are trying to be better, aren't allowed to, because God's rules are so uncompromising that people like Vaggie are thrown in with the same lot as pure evil bastards like Alistair. There's no discrepancy between the different degrees of evil, and everyone God deems unworthy of heaven ends up in the same place.
Redemption. Oh, the non-existent humanity. No. I don't think there's anything left that could save such loathsome sinners. The chance given was the life they lived before. The punishment is this. There is no undoing what is done.
Perhaps this series might even end up massively changing gears, and the characters find out how incredibly authoritarian and corrupt heaven is, with everyone being forced to be totally obedient and constantly worried about stepping out of line for fear of expulsion. And so Charlie decides that it actually isn't better to send people to heaven, and instead she tries to make hell a better place for the people in it to live when she is made queen. I mean, if this line from Vaggie is any indication, I don't think that the happy ending Charlie wishes for is going to end up being the end of the series.
That's the happy ending, see? Everyone's smiling and happy in heaven.
I don't think it's that simple.
Now, all of this analysis might just be my based, red-pilled, highly evolved, anti-theist brain talking, but I think that with what has already been set up, Hazbin Hotel could go on to become so much more than just an adult animated sitcom, and could offer some really amazing religious social commentary. I mean, Hell of a Boss is already kind of doing that, and that's the more lighthearted series, so I can't wait to see what the main series will have in store in the future. Oh, and speaking of which, I guess I should briefly talk about Hell of a Boss and what my opinion on it is. Hell of a Boss is really good, and I've been enjoying it more and more as new episodes have been coming out. I didn't really like the pilot as much as the one for Hazbin Hotel, and I don't think the premise or the characters are quite as strong as in Hazbin Hotel, but I do think Hell of a Boss is probably funnier, and the jokes just continue to pound you into submission as they never get stale, and the voice acting does an incredibly good job at selling them.
Don't worry, we'll get that skank in less than 24 hours or your first kill is free!
When did we start implementing that deal?
When you set fire to my office in front of a client, you fucking dipshit!
The characters have iconic interactions with one another, the plotlines of the episodes are incredibly inventive and creative, and the show also has a surprisingly big amount of heart in quite a few scenes. Also, they somehow got Daryl Dixon to play Stryper, and it's amazing, but also for real how though. As of now, Hazbin Hotel has not come out with an episode 2, however, it has been apparently announced that the Hazbin Hotel pilot has been picked up for television, and will be coming out with more episodes of a full season 1 at some point in the future, which I am just so incredibly excited about. I'm so glad that this series got picked up for TV, and I just hope that there isn't a bunch of fucking studio meddling, and it doesn't end up being censored. This series truly is a shining example of the raw time and effort that independent internet creators put into their work, paying off in spades. And you know I'm going to watch the shit out of the new episodes when they come out. All I can say, Vivian Madrano, is that you and all the people who worked to create your beautiful baby did a killer job, and that all the people who were having a meltdown over Hazbin Hotel on Twitter are ignorant poopy heads.
You can write us a bad review, but we'll play dumb to it because it's hell and no one fucking cares.
Alright then, this has been the Skeptical Skeptic. Thank you for watching my review of Hazbin Hotel. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Sorry I haven't been uploading in a while. I've been busy with a lot of stuff recently, one of which is a new second YouTube channel I've been uploading on. So before you click off, make sure to check out my second channel, The Aromantic Shipper, where I move away from politics and religious analysis and criticism, and make lighter videos about my other passion, fiction and media. I do all kinds of things there, like memeing, reviews for series I'm fond of, and rewrites, so make sure to check that out. And with that shameless plug out of the way, always remember, be compassionate, be understanding, but most importantly, never stop questioning. Bye.